but I'm amazed at what a human being can actually do.
It's just so intense, a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline going, and it's the best thing you can ever do.
Coming splotting down Bray Hill.
Okay, so high performance is all about getting the best out of your body under pressure, and obviously there's a massive physical aspect to that, but also it's being able to cope with it under mental stress, I suppose. It's the best way to probably describe it. And obviously we've got two guests here today who are high performing with Wim Hof technique, and obviously Elliott he's a ex-professional mountain bike rider and local cycling legend. And as I said before, Ian, who's the only Wim Hof instructor on the Isle of Man.
Yep.
He went bad at football, if I remember rightly.
Not bad.
Yeah, so this is like high performance, and it's we touched on a subject a wee while ago there with we had Paul Phillips on as a guest, and it was all centered around basically gathering up data from TT riders. Obviously, TTs it's at a very high level now, and we all need to be fit and round to go. And there's a lot of aspects to that, and how we gather the data and how they use it to promote rider safety. You know, I firmly believe if we're fit on the grid, then we're in a safe space to begin with, and how we use that data to improve rider safety. So it's just sort of expanding on that a little bit, and talk to you guys who well respected in your fields. So we'll start with yourself, Ian. Obviously, a Wim Hof instructor here in the Isle of Man. What's your story?
Well, I got into the Wim Hof method through probably like anyone who wants to jump in a cold ice bath, really. Through a bit of pain, a bit of suffering, some hardship that was going on in my life. I'd just gone through a breakup. Wasn't long after actually we first met. You know, we were playing football at St. John's, and that kind of, I was sick at the time, dealing with a bowel condition that the doctors told me was incurable. I'd be on medication for the rest of my life. And I really didn't want to go down that road. I'd seen family members who'd suffer with depression and seen how the medication hadn't helped them. So for me, I wanted to search for a natural way of doing things. But during that time, while I was sick and dealing with the breakup and trying to pay the mortgage and do everything like that on my own, I also went through my own darkness, would they say. I got to a point where I was probably suicidal. And I was probably minutes away from taking my own life before let's say divine intervention kind of came in, and my best friend literally phoned me up in that moment and told me to come to his house for the weekend, where him and my girlfriend look after me. And I changed my mindset during that weekend. I was like, well, if I don't want to be here anymore, why don't I try and kill myself? Trying to be open-minded enough to try anything that I thought was weird or a bit out there to try and help myself. And that's the mindset that I took into everything, really. So I changed my diet straight away. I went on a different diet. I started fasting, started doing all types of different things that I thought was a bit out there. But I really felt the benefits of that. And I took into my world the mindset of I'm willing to die to find out the truth, whether this works or not. So then when it was actually a friend of mine's father who was diagnosed with cancer, who mentioned the Wim Hof method to me. Now, like most people, I had a massive fear of the cold. I was the guy on the New Year's dip with his hat, coat, scarf, wrapped up to the nines, watching his friends come out to see, telling me how invigorated they felt. And I'm like, yeah, you can keep that. I'm good in my nice warm coat. But when my friend's father told me about it, it was like, okay, let's. He basically told me that Wim could control his own immune system response, and I thought, really? Yeah, how's he able to do that? So I started delving into this natural health world anyway, and it already felt like through diet, fasting, and nutrition, I'd healed my bowel condition without need for medication. So I was like, okay, well, what if I got to fear of the cold? And if this guy is, Wim Hof is breaking world records, climbing Everest in a pair of shorts, swimming the ice for the longest distance on a single breath hold, doing a 2-hour ice bath, more or less, controlling his own body temperature, and at the same time with the Radboud study proving that via the breathing technique that we've all just done, we reduce inflammation in the body, bring down interleukin 6 and interleukin 8, which are pro-inflammatory cytokines within the body, and enhance interleukin 10. Wim was actually injected with an endotoxin into the bloodstream. Basically, the E. coli bacteria, it's a food poisoning, straight into the bloodstream. Should have been violently ill for 4 or 5 hours, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, you name it. And using the breathing technique that we just did, managed to get no symptoms of sickness. So that was the first time in medical history they were like, wow, this guy, there's something to this, right? And so they had a control group because they basically said, Wim, you're the Iceman, you're superhuman, you're different to everyone else on this planet, right? And Wim being Wim was like, no, I'm not, I'm just normal, but what I could do, anyone could do. So they had a control study where they had a group of people who were just meditators, didn't do the training, and then they had the group that Wim took to Poland, did the training that I did, brought them all back into the hospital settings within a week. All of them got injected, 100% of them did get sick. So it was the first time in medical history that we proved via our breathing we can influence the innate immune system and the autonomic nervous system via breathing, which was massive. Should have been all over, spread out all over the world, and everyone should have known about this. I think it was 2007 it was. So when I got to Poland, I actually went there in search of trying to help my friend's father. But what I realised, because I had a lot of during that period of time, I was working in a factory. One of my family members had attempted to commit suicide on a couple of occasions. One of the guys who worked in the factory hung himself on a Monday morning on the way into work, and this was all like literally in the build up to me going to Poland to go and do the training. And I went there to see if this could help other people. Well, really, it was me that needed it. It was me that needed breaking down with the breath work and the cold, and having that experience out in Poland, where I got to meet Wim. Personally, he took my phone number and email address during that trip, and we stayed in contact. That's when I decided, off his advice, to join the academy to teach this, which was never my intention. It was more from meeting Wim and him saying, why don't you teach others this? I didn't think I was good enough to do it. I didn't have the confidence to stand up in front of people and speak and do that type of thing. But the more I had to go through that own process in my mind, well, what have I got to fear? I just stepped outside my own comfort zone and was like, I signed up to the academy. Went and stayed at Wim's house in Stroop in the Netherlands for a week. Stayed there with him, went through the instructor training, went off to Spain, did the summer expedition in Spain with him and the group there, a group of people that were on that expedition, and then went off to a healing village in Honduras, where during my nutritional side of things, I found out about a guy called Dr. Sebi, who we spoke about on some other podcasts, a nutritionalist who was basically claiming he was curing a lot of incurable diseases using natural methods. So I went to go out and experience that at his healing village in Honduras. So I did that before then coming back to Poland a year later and finalised my training again, where I had to climb Mount Snezga in Poland in the middle of the Polish winter, just in shorts, which was a pretty harsh environment. So
I would say.
Yeah.
How many climbed the mountain? Or on course?
I think he was 40. The first time I did it, he was 60. We got caught in a snowstorm, had to turn around. The second time we did it was with a group of instructors to be, which was 40 others. And I think it went down as one of the worst conditions on the mountain on that second time, because there was a sleet storm came in. So now you're dealing with getting wet. At the same time, you had 70-kilometer winds, which is obviously the wet and the wind chill takes the heat out of you a lot faster. So we were dealing with that at the same time with just in shorts.
And no coat, yeah.
Just in shorts, yeah. So we were focused on getting up the mountain, but I didn't think it, with the wind chill, probably went down to the minus 30s, 40s. And but for me, I learned a lot about myself in those moments, because in my head I was like, I was willing to die, literally, because at the time I was going from the darkness, it was like, I don't care. And it kind of took that mindset on the mountains, like, but in a weird way, and this is something I want to ask you about. In that moment, I felt a peace of mind and a clarity that I've never felt before in my life. And I've just felt more alive than I've ever felt in my life, but probably closest to death than I've ever been in my life. So I never used to like the TT. My dad is a big TT lover, right? Loved it. I moved to the Isle of Man when I was 14. Used to think it was a bit more of an inconvenience, dead light, the bike's not.
Yeah.
This is, mine was always football, right? I was just a football fanatic as a youngster. But then after I did that experience, then I watched the Closest to the Edge documentary. I was like, I kind of get it. I don't know if you're in that different mindset and you're in that now state, that present moment, and the adrenaline going and the feeling and the rest of that.
Yeah, it's we discussed it before. Flow state is the only way I can get near to describing what it's like being on the track. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you must get such an adrenaline buzz, and how you do it for the buzz this, buzz that." And I'm extremely boring with my answers. It's not. I do it because I actually love doing it. You know, I don't get like to a point where, wow, this is. I do get a mega buzz off it. I still absolutely love doing it, but it's the fact that I'm actually doing it. It feels, yeah, you're free. It's a bit bizarre.
Yeah.
I bet the bigger buzz is the result.
Yeah.
A good race and you've hit all your targets and hit all your marks and that was really good and you feel good about yourself for that, more than actual sat on the bike.
Yeah, obviously that's the ultimate. I mean, the end result, if we're all pushing for something, we get a result, no matter what that is. It feels good. I mean, the one thing, what I would say is, on the bike, is you get to a point where when you're going fast, when everything around you is blanked out, and you feel like actually going slow. But you're going, it's just that flow state, it's that mindset of just so in that moment, you don't really look like you're not looking at anything else, you know. But you've clearly pushed yourself like to get to where you got to on those mountains, you know. But did you feel like you were pushing yourself, or was it just like you were in that moment of, I'm just here, I'm just present, I'm just, yeah.
That's it. Like you say, it's hard to explain to someone who's not kind of in that. And the closest you get, like, you've all just done an ice bath, right? But in that moment, if you're just focused, and this was obviously prolonged, so it's like 2.5, 3 hours up a mountain. And I was just, like you said, in the flow state, in the zone, just focused on myself, my breathing, each step, not focusing on the storm. Yes, the storm's coming in, but it was a weird place within the mind. And like I said, it feels free.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't worrying about all the shit that I had going. Sorry for the language, but all the stuff I had going on back up. All the stuff that I had going on back at home. And in that moment, I was literally free.
Yeah.
Like, and I
Just you.
can't explain it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were that focused that we were in the lead group on the last time we were on the mountain. And I turned around and there was no one behind us. And we'd kind of lost the rest of the group. And the group that I was with, we were like, a couple of the guys, we must have been 100 meters from the summit. We were so close. Right? 2 occasions have been on Mount Snezka, and both occasions have not managed to get to the summit yet, because the first time was a snowstorm. They made everyone turn around, and me and my ego at the time was like, I want to get to the top. I feel great, right? But then it was like, well, what about all the other people? And it's not about me and my ego wanting to get to the top. It's about getting everyone off the mountain safely, right? What we achieved was amazing. But on the second time, we must have, like I said, zero, not much visibility. We were 100 meters from the summit. And one of the guys I was with is an ex-police officer. Oh, he was a police officer. Probably still is. And he was like, come on, we're going to get to the top. And I'm like, Ben, I was like, have you got a radio on you? He's like, no. Said to one of the other girls who was with us, have you? No. I said, right, well, we're not going anywhere then, because, you know, we could go off to the summit. We don't know what's going on behind us. So this is how clear I was thinking in my mind, as much as I wanted to get to the top, because that was the goal, right? The mountain guide was with us, and I just said, you go back down the mountain, go around the corner, find out what's going on with everyone else. We'll wait here. You make the decision whether we summit or whether we turn around. And then he come back, went around the corner. He's like, right, perfect. He actually took a photo in that moment, which I show when I do my Wim Hof fundamentals course. I show that moment. And he goes around the corner, comes back up, and he's like, no, we're gonna have to get off the mountain. Yeah. So luckily we made the right decision in that moment. Turned around and got off the mountain, but it was still probably the wildest experience I've ever had.
I thought I was going to say you sneaked up the mountain and I disappeared.
Ran off and like, right, got a picture at the top.
So I'm interested. You've kind of considered that flow state, and if Conor thinks about it, or that using that narrative, you obviously performed at a high level as well.
Yeah.
Do you and Matty as well in that sports space? Can you look back in your career and look at times when I was in that space, or what we're trying to define here as flow?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's always what you're striving for, isn't it? But it's few and far between, I think. And it's I can think quite clearly in 2 or 3 rides where it just felt easy, but you train a lifetime to get those 2 or 3 rides, really, don't you? So it's
you can bottle that if you had to look at that and try to bottle that and go, that's the things that align for you to be in that state.
I don't actually know, because I've prepared really well for some races and not performed, and other times performed better than expected. But I think any athlete, you lifetimes with the training, and every now and again everything aligns, and you just have those great, great performances.
You might. Have you ever had any? No. You've done sport. I mean, I suppose. Reasonable
obviously
level.
to a level. As you said, it's hard to prepare for that in that sense, isn't it? Because again, you like overthink things, you get stressed, all that. What you think you should be doing or what should happen. It's those moments where you're not thinking, you're in that moment, you're racing or whatever it may be, and then suddenly you say it's the moment you reflect. For me, the moment you reflect after, to be like, that actually went really well and that was really good, and it's not something I think about or prepare for in that sense, because I really get in my head and an overthinker and things like that, and that's where I can go the other way, worry too much about things, the littlest thing, and it can set me off, whereas I need to learn a bit more in that of being able to just relax, calm, and be a bit more clear in that.
Using breathing, Tony.
Absolutely.
I mean, for me, I used to have it when I was playing football sometimes, and I suppose it's like the whole Bruce Lee thing, where he was quite a big person in my life that I would look at for kind of inspiration in certain things. And he would train so much, he said, the body when throwing a punch, it just does it by itself. It's just kind of like a reaction, right? The more you train and do something, it just becomes a reaction, right? So sometimes when I played football, I'd do something and I think, how the hell did I do that? I didn't even think about it. It just kind of happened. And being in that state, it's a fantastic place to be in, and especially when you use these breathing techniques and then the cold on top of the benefits, like the ice bath, for example. I'm sure everyone's feeling pretty good in here right now.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously you got the benefits of increasing your norepinephrine or noradrenaline, which is associated with depletion, and that's associated with depression, increasing that by 200 to 500% without having the need to take any drugs or pharmaceuticals. And then you've got the increase in dopamine, which is 250%, which they say is the equivalent of taking cocaine, but without all the negative side effects again. Yeah, so exactly. Or and then you've got the increase in white blood cell count, which is normally to fight off disease and infection, increasing testosterone in men. So we're actually using cold plunges before doing exercise is actually a really good way of boosting your output, believe it or not. And then obviously warm for afterwards, heat shock proteins, the breath work for simulating high altitude training the cardiovascular system to work better. Wim's actually used breathing techniques to climb Kilimanjaro with a group of, I think, 40 people. Some of them, most of them are sick, some with arthritis, Crohn's disease, cancer, all kinds of illnesses, and he's managed to climb Kilimanjaro, I think one of the records is 28 hours. Without need to acclimatize, because you've also using these breathing techniques simulated that, which has allowed the body to make adaptation. It's a hormetic stressor on the body. So you're willfully going into a stressful situation or creating stress that the body then adapts to, which then makes it stronger.
Do you get many athletes come and do the sessions with you then?
So I've done a session for FC Alaban. I've done a session for those guys. I work quite closely with some ex-professional rugby players, some football players and stuff like that in the UK, which obviously you've been present at recently with some. We use it to help people go from the sports world into the speaker world, because another big stress for a lot of people is public speaking, and that by our breathing we can literally control our central nervous system. So when we get in stressful situations, we can go to the breathing, relax ourselves, stay calm, rather than having that panic response, that fight or flight response, which was wanting to fight or flee, right, or freeze. No pun intended. But if we can learn how to control our breathing and relax, like you guys did tonight, in a stressful environment like an ice bath, stay calm and relax.
That was fantastic. I say, yeah, that for anyone listening, yeah, where we did the ice bath, before it, because myself, I had never done it before.
Yeah.
That visualization, already preparing us, talking through what's going to happen, getting us already in that rhythm of breathing before we'd even stepped in. And then as soon as you do, you're there and guiding you through it. He said, when you focus on that, it just, yeah, I wouldn't want to, but I'd like to see the difference between I had no guidance and just sat in there to see the complete contrast of.
I jump out, mate.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Is in that complete contrast to I was calm. Those 2 minutes went by compared to if I'd have just thrown myself into an ice bath. You said 20 seconds on it, probably would have been panicking, shivering, and getting out. So it's so fascinating, that breathwork stuff of what we've gone through tonight. We haven't talked more on the breathwork, but yeah.
And that first 20 or 30 seconds of the ice bath was, like you said, completely the worst. And and by the end, when you count us down the last 5 and 10 seconds, you think, well, I could handle more actually, but if I had to, so yes, interesting.
What was because you've not done one before?
No.
What was your kind of takeaway from it, apart from being cold, obviously?
How much better I felt at the end than the start. Like that first few seconds, I was like, "What am I doing in this?" And then by the end, there was pretty. I mean, I wanted to get out, but it wasn't like I didn't think I'd last 2 minutes, 10 seconds in.
Yeah,
just pure. Yeah.
Do you think if you went back to your career as like a 19-year-old, if you were 19 today, you wish, and people were, your coaches around you saying to do this, do you think you build that type of thing? I mean, Conor does it regularly now. Do you think you build that type of thing into, obviously understanding it more from the first experience, but something you build into to help your performance?
I mean, and if we're talking about high performance, that's got to be a package, hasn't it? And as part of the package of preparing for TT or whatever it might be, I think it's got a great place in that recovery part and mindset.
Yeah.
You can do the training, do all the preparation, and then if you're looking for that last little percent, it's something else you could do, couldn't it? But it fits in,
The mindset's an interesting, Colin. I mean, you talk about the TT, you mentioned it. A home where we're in a room, we're kind of accountable to each other because the egos kick in. It's like, I can't be the one not to do it. But when you're doing it at home, you've got to battle your mind, arm wrestle a little chimp in your head that says, don't get in that ice bath.
Yeah, and there's like a bit of a strutting exercise, so I've got to be in it before my wife gets in it. Yeah.
Only because you guys were there.
yeah. But like back in the day, then, what would be your typical training regime? Like, what? Obviously, you got, as far as I'm concerned, what you don't know about cycling is not worth knowing.
And I've learned the hard way.
Yeah.
And the way my methods now are a lot different than when I was doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really inconsistent. I could be world class or I could be terrible, and I didn't know why sometimes. And it took a lifetime's worth of experience and trying different things and different coaches and different methods to find that place where we are now. And it's almost boring in that the truth is it's consistency, isn't it? And it's not all training sessions aren't all super Gucci intervals and that. It's just being really consistent all the time. And then when you're not riding your bike or whatever you're training for, looking after yourself with good nutrition, good recovery, just balance. I mean, I was when I was racing, like it's all that mattered, and that probably wasn't healthy. And I've rode better since I retired and kind of came back as an amateur rider. I've definitely rode better, in that respect. And I think if I'd have had 19-year-old body with 30-year-old head, that would have been a much better. Well, I would have been a lot better athlete. And that's where I'm at now with the coaches, trying to get those lessons across to the people that I help.
Yeah, I was listening to George Russell podcast this morning.
Sorry.
He's 26 now, and I assume, because obviously they're wealthy people as well, they can surround themselves with psychologists that maybe teach them stuff that we have to learn, should we say, through just experience, because we can't afford psychologists, nutritionists, etc. when we're 25, and when they're surrounding people, and just how level-headed they are. But then just learning from other people who've already, I suppose, like you described, I guess the athletes you have now, learning, getting them to learn. But I always think back, at 19, if you were 13 telling me, shut up, Elliott, I'm just carry on training. but I don't know, maybe they have enough suite of experience around them that's like, no, you need to listen to that coach, you need to listen to that nutritionist. I don't know,
No, I'd agree,
It's having those people in your corner makes a big difference. Like,
Then it's family, isn't it?
yeah, it's having a good circle of people around you and with your best interests at heart. Like, and if people can tap into up and coming cyclists, can tap into your experience, what you learned over the years. Crikey, the cycling's in a good spot, really, as far as I'm concerned. I've worked with you before, and you've put me through my paces. I'm not the best cyclist, but I mean, from a road racing perspective, there's a lot of riders who now do a lot of cycling. Cycling's a big part of their regime, and it's great for cardio. It's just great for me. I'm a fair weather cyclist. I'm not afraid to admit it. It's a good way of taking over.
I think that's why you're here tonight. I spoke to Martin about the people that I help for TT. I spoke to you about it a little bit, and I just try and take the cycling methodologies and put it to what you do. And for me, like TT, for example, we've talked about before, is a stage race. It's 2 weeks long. So, and what you're doing on day one, or the preparation leading up to the event, but then what you do on day 1 to day 14 of TT, it's going to make a big difference. If you've got all the right habits and processes in place from the very first day of practice week, you're going to be a better person on senior race day than somebody that's getting gradually worse through the fortnight because they're not recovering properly, they're not training properly, not eating properly, all their habits after the race are wrong. And from what I've seen, people aren't paying enough attention to warming up, cooling down, decompressing after practice, so
I think like the warming up's a massive. It's something I personally do at a race meeting before every session. If we're doing a circuit race in the UK, warm up. It's like I'm in my camper. I've got the bands. Just warm everything up as best I can. Admittedly, I'm not on a treadmill or a rower or a static bike, but it definitely. Yeah, it's being smart about it, isn't it, really?
Well, how many times have you heard, Conor, and I get sick of hearing it on like Radio TT or whatever it is, the coverage now. Oh, the first lap, just couldn't get into it, arm pump, but after that, and they're losing good riders, losing 10 seconds, 50 seconds on the first lap just because their body's not up to speed, head-wise, muscles-wise, for the sake of knowing how to warm up properly.
That's just true. And I totally hear what you're saying with regards to your warm down. For me, I'm totally open to change as well. I've, for my training program this winter, I've obviously introduced the ice bath, and that's my way of recovering. After, I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not on a static or anything after each session, but I feel as though the ice bath definitely brings something to the party in terms of recovery. You sleep better, as we were chatting about before. And if you want to improve, you've got to change stuff every now and again, haven't you, as well? And,
try stuff,
be flexible, and that's certainly something I've brought to my training, without having to over-engineer anything as well.
It's not difficult. This is real basic stuff for endurance sports, and I've seen some of the data that the TT's been collecting around riders and some of my athletes are some of those subjects. And in terms of heart rate, these guys are basically running a half marathon every night, as you'll know. Heart rate rise, that kind of intensity of a half marathon every day of the week for 2 weeks. And these are people that aren't prepared to run a half marathon every day of the week for 2 weeks. So they're getting gradually more and more tired through the fortnight. Again, the data, as you know, shows that a lot of accidents happen towards the end of the fortnight, towards the end of the races, because they're not conditioned enough to make the right decisions, or make the wrong decisions later on in the event and later on to the fortnight. So if you start TT fortnight with a big aerobic engine, you're well trained, well prepared, and then you do the right things after the race, so you're warming down, you're decompressing, you're sleeping better, your nutrition's better. Well, then by end of the second week, you're still got the clarity to make the right decisions.
Absolutely.
But what you're doing, you're making thousands of decisions a lap. And that's what it is, really, isn't it?
And that's just probably the slightly abnormal factor in this whole thing of racing a TT course. Such a different environment, but no, I'm totally with you on. It's all about your preparation, and I've always done it. Since I went full-time bike racing in 2007. I've focused and committed myself to training, and I had to train harder through injury, and try and be fit. Probably when I wasn't gonna be fit either. You know, I was in a real bad position. 2011, I did the TT basically one side. Everything was like the left side was just hanging on. But of course, obviously, we're seeing now with the TT and the way they're addressing rider safety. They're now, as I said right at the start of this pod, is they're gathering data and being able to, and trying to use it to improve rider safety. It's actually it's probably a bigger thing than what, you know, we're realizing. You know, back in,
I think it's huge.
whenever I started doing TT in 06, you know, admittedly, it wasn't unheard of. If you did a session, you went out for a pint after.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that was, it's a generational thing, don't get me wrong, and it's not a bad thing, because obviously the practice sessions were different back then, the way they were structured. But now you've got this TT coming off, you've got more racing, you've got more practice, the level is so high, you've got to be
I think
absolutely...
the days of racing at 80%, 90%, like people thought,
Yeah.
gone up, mate. You guys are pushing from start to finish.
Absolutely. And like you said earlier, you can't afford to be on the back foot after one lap, or
Exactly,
because it's
yeah.
going on pump.
Yeah.
It's got to be 100% right from the get-go. So like the training and the wellness and looking after yourself throughout is such an important thing. Like, and I can't wait to see what the way, you know, these things aid and help riders in the future.
I think about Martin and Matthew here. We often race midweek, don't we, on our push bikes once a week maybe, and we're flat out for an hour or so. Do we sleep at night? Well, no, your head's so imagine doing that 10 days plus in a row, times raised to the level these guys are concentrating. They probably haven't slept for 2 weeks, some of them, if they're not prepared properly.
Then again,
And the Blue Ribbon event's on the last day of the fortnight.
but then again, that's what you're saying with the sleep, with the cold and the ice to recover, to just decompress.
Yeah.
Especially if you add in sauna as well. So if you did ice bath, sauna, and just
Yeah.
let go of all that, and you can kind of lower that.
It's something I'm actually looking forward to.
Yeah.
Seeing what it brings. Like, I'm looking forward to getting around the best racetrack in the world, obviously, got to say that.
Yeah.
But getting home to being in the ice bath, just switching off and looking forward to that sleep.
But what do you think about that minute, or when you jump off the bike at the end of a session, you kind of debrief with the team, whatever, they're just spending, I think, 10, 15 minutes on something like a static bike, or just something where you're just letting your body wind down again for a few minutes before you go into your... I think that would be really important.
It's something I've got to be open to, you know.
How many guys just jump in the van and drive home, and then heads are going like that?
Yeah.
With all the information that has been...
Admittedly, that's what I've done every year. I've done it, you know, but like, again, like I said before, if you want to do well, sometimes things have got to change, and you know, maybe I've got to look at that. But I feel like right now I'm sitting, my prep's bang on. I don't think I've been in a better place, to be honest, with everything. And I've got some additional stuff that's going to help me.
I mean, it'd be interesting to try the breath work after a session. Yeah, after you've done the session, because when you're doing those breath holds, you're really lowering that heart rate, and you're going back into that parasympathetic.
I'm even doing it now. Mad. I can't, like,
slowing down that heart rate and going into that parasympathetic stuff, you know, rest, digest, recovery part of your nervous system. And that's so valid and so, you know, needed.
I mean, we should go on to that, you know, that session we were all at before. That has genuinely opened my mind to a lot of, like, that blew me away, that whole session. And there's all sorts of feelings in and around it. And it, talk about blowing me away, that definitely blew me away. Like, it was it was almost like out of body. I don't know whether that's just me or felt out of my body parts.
I'll give a 1 minute cap of what you were doing to us. Yes.
So basically what we did was we did a practice round, but we did 4 rounds of the Wim Hof method breath work, which in some cases can feel a bit out of body. It can be quite a spiritual experience. We don't kind of promote it as that, but it can be quite deep like that, as well as the benefits for your recovery, your inflammation, but lowering the heart rate and being in that different part of the mind, being in that kind of meditative state without all the other nonsense. So you can literally go, as well as straining the cardiovascular system and all the other benefits, reducing inflammation, but you were really in a different state of mind and you relaxed. And like you said, Elliott, there was no thoughts. It's the first time in ages I've not thought about all this other stuff. So I think it would be interesting to see how it will work after.
And my first thought after
Right.
that was how useful it would be for him getting off his bike at the end of a session
Yeah.
to just clear his head.
Yeah, and then you add in the ice,
So you can
and
sleep
then
better. Yeah.
sleep better, you recover better, you feel better the next day. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see as well before you go racing. So you load your heart rate down, you're ready for the bike, and what you just mentioned before, which was really good about monitoring the TT ride and seeing how the heart rate's going up. You're almost running like a half marathon each day, whereas your breathing is connected to that nervous system. So it'd be interesting to see if you could relax your breathing a little bit more. I know you're in a full-on adrenaline state while you're on the bike, but if you can control that a little bit more and focus on your breathing.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I could. You're always looking to improve that, on something. I think that if I could utilize that technique to calm the nerves down, because everyone's nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're playing a game of chess or something, you're going to get nervous. Nothing's against chess, by the way. There's nerves, and I sometimes feel as though, when you're competing at a higher level and the nerves are there, that's always taking a little bit. In my head, I'm thinking that's taking a little bit of energy away from me. That should be channeled another way, and again, being open to stuff.
Let's have a confidence then that all your preparations at that point is everything you could have done.
Yeah.
If you've got any doubts, that's where you might be nervous about you. And I'm talking about your performance. You might, I haven't done enough, or could I have done more of this?
Yeah.
But if you know you've done everything you can do up to that point, then it is what it is, then, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sitting now. I know I've done everything. I feel brilliant. I'm thinking there's a little bit of a gain in it. What can I can get something up on the next ride. Do you know what I mean? What's my next advantage? That's where I'm seeing this.
And it's those low 1%, isn't it? Of low 1% here, 1% there, 1% there, that makes those bigger differences.
Yeah.
Now, in any elite level sport.
I mean, you've been in some really ultra competitive events. Is there ever been a time where you thought, bloody hell, the nerves are getting the better of me here, and is it affecting my performance?
I'm same as you. I think I realised that everyone on the start line's nervous, so then it's just up to you to handle it best, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think the nerves have affected the performance at any point, but it's just how you deal with it. And again, the older I got, the more experience I got, you just start to realise that. I think I'd be more nervous previously about. I would focus too much on the result, and then as you get older and more experienced, and the processes are more important, aren't they?
Yeah.
I said if you do all the preparation right, you do all the habits and the things in between the training as well. And if I go and execute, the result is what it is. So I kind of got less nervous when I just got to do everything I can do, execute on the day, and then
It was easy then to deal with, let's call it, results you weren't what they expected to be, because ultimately you did everything you could, and therefore if you finished 28th when you wanted to win it, it was easier to handle because you'd left nothing on the table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think what I was trying, I pulled out of a lot of races, I think, in the past as a young rider, because the result wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. Because I had a few really good results. I thought that should be the norm, but it's just not. That's not the way things go, do they? And as I got older, I started concentrating more on the processes and executing what I could do in the race. And then, like I said, the result would be what it will be.
But it will come better then.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you see that in so Federer talks about this, doesn't he? Federer was saying he won 53% of his points throughout his whole career,
Right.
which is mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think how much he won.
Yeah.
Well, that was again about just the process. Play a point, move on. Don't reflect backwards. Don't reflect on a mistake. Learn from it, but move on really quickly. And I guess that's part of mindset as well, and isn't it? But trust in all the process, that all the training and everything he's done up to that point, maybe losing that point, you can just switch it. Next point, next point, next point. Yes, yeah.
Michael Jordan said the same thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
He talks about how many
Shots
baskets he hit, but what about all the thousands that he missed?
Yeah.
And he was just like, consistency. He doesn't I missed one. Right, don't beat yourself up about it. Move on and just keep going.
Have you read Atomic Habits?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a great, amazing book.
I know, I've just got it recently. Someone gave it to
You see, read that, Conor?
No, I'll have to have a look at that.
It's an amazing book. and not necessarily massively sport oriented, but just that habit building and that consistency that Elliott talks about. I see that in work. That's something we try and do as well, as just small, consistent, same things consistently.
I see it with the younger riders that I try and help. I'm talking like teenagers, that it's just so result focused on what somebody else is doing. And I want to be that bit, well, don't worry about that person. Let's worry about getting your processes right and that you execute the best you can do. And what will be after that. If you turn up, like I said to Conor, turn up and you're not prepared, well, then you've got pressure on you, isn't it?
Yeah. It comes out of that controllables, doesn't it? Control the controllables, which is you.
Yeah.
Don't control the uncontrollables, which is your competitor. Ultimately.
Yeah.
They just might be there that day. Interesting.
So who's the next big thing cycler? I'm going to put you under this.
Guys on the spot, yeah. There's a good crop of young riders coming through on the mountain bikes, and it's not in the sport I did, but it's in the gravity side, the downhill side. Isaac Batty.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
Very, very fast, really hard working. Technique is brilliant. So quite a big year coming up for him in the age category he's in, but he's every chance of achieving what he needs to achieve if he keeps doing what he's doing. So yeah, big hopes for him. There's a lot of young riders on the road actually coming through. And there's just so much opportunity now.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody shows some talent now, they can get involved in like a GB program. That's, you know, the pathways to the Olympics are all there now. Somebody's willing to put the work in and, you know, do look after themselves. There's every opportunity.
Not to go down a nerdy bike conversation too much, but you see, like, even in pro races over the last few weeks, been a couple of British lads, not Blackwell or Blackmore, is it, at 19, 20. Do you think they're coming through? And obviously, Pogacar's top of his game at a young age. Is that because that professionalism, that consistency, all those good things happen at starting at such a young age?
Yeah.
From like 9, 10. Yeah. That therefore, I wouldn't say they're reaching a peak, but the performance is so high at 20, 21. They can win. Do you think that's the reason?
I think it's one of the reasons, yeah. But it's also not the, you know, Pogacar's, for example, they're all young, but I still think there's a place for people coming through a bit later. So people not to be disheartened if they haven't made it by 19.
Yeah. And Max might be an example where he has broken through, but
great example of that. There's somebody that's been at it for years, well, relatively years, and almost overlooked, I would say, even though he's always had the engine to do it. And now look, you know, opportunity he's got. So yes, is the reason why I would say why there's so many good young riders now is that people are being more professional from a younger age. But I'd also hate to see people think that's the only way because they've got a childhood as well and need to live. I really don't start pushing people too much until they're in their later teens. Yeah. Because it's important to enjoy their, you know, the teenagers and enjoy their bikes.
Whether you're willing to answer, but obviously there's parents involved in those situations as well when you're, I guess, helping younger riders. Is there much dynamics out? Do you tend to tell a parent, leave this with me type situation? Or
no, I've been really lucky.
Right.
People that I've been working with, parents are really supportive and happy for me to speak to their teenagers. Because you know what it's like. Teenagers don't listen to their parents.
Yeah, okay.
Even if they got good advice sometimes. So yeah, I've got lots of conversations with teenage people that maybe their parents are trying to tell them the same thing, but because it comes from me, they might listen.
Yeah. Interesting. So can I go back to the breathing technique we talked about? So we obviously did maybe around half an hour of the session that you train. We recorded it, so hopefully it'll come out on some kind of channels that we'll talk about here. But maybe I've done it before, but you guys haven't. Maybe just talk about your experiences from that sort of 20-minute exercise. So you're flooding the body with oxygen.
So basically you're doing 30 to 40 deep inhales in a circular motion, and you want to be breathing into the belly, as we discussed. Most people, when they're breathing, especially people who suffer with anxiety and things like that, breathing unconsciously into the chest, the upper chest cavity, which is a very shallow breath, which is then causing vasoconstriction, blood vessels to constrict, which then affects blood flow, which then creates a fight or flight response within the nervous system. So a lot of people during daily life, even as we're sitting here now at rest, right, are chronically over breathing, but shallow breathing as well. So they're actually cutting themselves off from oxygen.
I do it so badly all the time.
Right.
So you do more under stress as well. If you
stress, right? So it's a perpetual stress cycle. Yeah. So when you get stressed, your breathing pattern changes. When your breathing pattern changes, you get stressed. Yeah. And it's just the same cycle, right? But if we can go back to the breath and learn how to breathe deep within the belly, if I had a diagram of the lungs up on the screen or wherever, where would the biggest part of the lungs be? Be at the bottom, right? Mm-hmm. So biggest part of the lungs are here. Diaphragm's your breathing muscle. That comes down, brings oxygen into the lungs, right? Breathe in, your diaphragm comes out. right? So you want to be breathing deeper in the belly, and a deep breath in is into the belly, and letting go. So when we're doing the rounds of breathing, we're going in and out in a circular motion from the belly to the chest to the head, and then just letting go with no force. If we're in tension, like you mentioned the ice bath to someone, right, or the cold, first thing, oh, I can do that, and they tense up. You'll see it in people, and they're breathing. If you're in that tense state, again, it's very shallow, so you're actually cutting yourself off from the oxygen you need. Like you said, Mal, when you're in the ice bath and you can just relax, breathe deep, and just stay focused on that breathing, you can go into that parasympathetic state while being in a sympathetic environment, which is, life-changing because you're taking back control of that stressor. Whereas this breathing technique, the rounds that we did, is creating a fight-flight response. You're going deeply in and letting go in a circular motion, which is putting you into that fight or flight, building it up, building up the oxygen. But then what's happening is you're doing then a breath hold on the exhale, right? So 30 to 40 deep inhales, circular motion. Doing it a little bit faster just as a demo. Nice and relaxed. Hold on the exhale. And then what you'll notice is, because you've done CO2, you can hold your breath for a lot longer than you thought possible, because your actual trigger to breathe is not the low levels of oxygen, it's the CO2 threshold and your sensitivity to CO2. So now that you've done hold on the exhale, some of you guys were holding your breath for nearly 3 minutes, which is, with no oxygen in your lungs, you'd think it was impossible, right? Once you've held that, then you go fully in, hold again, recovery breath, they call this. Roughly 10 to 15 seconds, lets everything balance out, and then start again. But while you're doing that breath hold, your heart rate is slowing and slowing and slowing. So your heart rate's increasing as you're doing the deep inhales. So it's a cardiovascular workout, slowing it down, and then it's going really, really low. And then after, it's like kind of reboot for the nervous system. So you'll notice your heart rate after you've done the breathing technique should be a lot lower. But at the same time, when you're doing the breath hold, you're lowering your oxygen levels to the levels that you would think, if we had a pulse oximeter on your finger, you would see how low your oxygen levels are going, which we discussed, where your spleen, which is the blood bank of the body, you're creating a hormetic stress within the body again. It's something that you're willfully doing and willfully creating. The spleen will start to contract. As that does, starts to release more red blood cells. More red blood cells means more oxygen delivered to the cells and the tissue. So you're actually forcing your body to make good adaptations.
Right.
Which,
What did you guys find?
We've just been sat breathing from our bellies.
Yeah.
You instinctively start thinking about it, don't you?
For me, when you let down and you said, right, I'm going to a wave, something about your wave, I was like, what's it mean, a wave? Then you literally demonstrated what it looks like. I was like, yeah, well, there's a wave. And got on the floor for the first time, like start to finish, lying on the floor initially. I was like, this is going to be an uncomfortable few minutes here, because I was aching, on your feet all day, etc. And then you start you did your demo, then we went through the rounds, and it felt like, I would say by around 2 or 3, I felt like I had such, like this muscle appeared, and I was able just to hold, my breathing felt so strong. It was such a bizarre feeling. I've obviously never had that before, but I felt like I could have just held my breath for such a long time. I felt obviously there's lights on in the room. I couldn't quite seal my eyes closed. It was such a weird thing. And the glimmers of light coming through were just like, they were stressing me out a little bit. So it was such a head game to get through. It was just these sorts of things you're going through. I was able to hold onto my breath for a lot longer. I felt like I used the expression out of body before. It felt like, obviously I was very present, but I felt like I was floating within my body.
it's hard to explain, right?
As you can tell.
But it's
such a unique experience. One I'd quite happily do again. It was brilliant. I really I felt a benefit to it. to then getting to the end where lying on the mat still, I felt so comfortable. I felt so chilled out. I was just, there was a police car, I think I can hear outside. It came into my thought process. I was able just to blank it straight out. You know, I just felt like I could just port this wall. You know, yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
What about you, Al?
Yeah, we spoke about it at the time, and I was just very aware that I wasn't thinking about something for a change. I'm very much spinning plates all the time. I feel like I'm spinning plates between work, family, coaching, one thing and another. And for that 40 minutes,
Half an hour.
half an hour,
Yeah.
I was just completely relaxed. Wasn't thinking about anything.
How does it link to mindfulness, doing mindfulness work?
Yeah, 100%. So it's kind of what Wim has created. It's kind of a biohack into a deep meditative state without all the nonsense. Because while you're breathing, you're also changing your body's physiology. So another thing that obviously when I do my fundamentals courses, we have people do the urine strips. So you test the blood pH before and after, and usually you go into a more alkaline state, which creates an environment for disease to struggle to grow in the body. But at the same time, you're not, like you said, you're not thinking. And being in that now, that present flow state, and that's where you want to be, isn't it? That meditative state is about no mind, no mindedness. And that's kind of what you can achieve without needing to go into a mountain for 5 years and hide yourself in a cave. You know what I mean?
Did you find it, Matt? I'm sorry.
No,
Go on.
Yeah. I think like most people here trying to put words to it, it's quite hard. It's absolutely not what I expected it to be. Again, I'm not any just, you know, you think I'll just do a bit of breathing exercise or something like that. How can that make such an impact on your body? Like we said, you picked up on, you know, at first I felt like I was kind of fighting it. And once you got into it, round 1, 2, 3, as you go, and you just got more relaxed, you were able to hold for longer. The sensations that came with it in terms of, you know, the T-Rex hand, as it was called. Like you're doing this and you have no idea, your legs and everything. It just completely whole body thing. And yeah, it's just
the laughter.
exactly. And that was it. That was the moment where I was like, yeah, this is working. You know, stuff is actually happening, and that laughter, and that's how it was expressed. Because I was like giggling type thing with a big smile on my face, because it was just like that initial incorrect presumption of what I'd be doing compared to, yeah, this is actually completely doing all sorts to my body. Was just like, yeah, it's. I was really at that point just enjoying that moment, and then it got even more intense as we got into round 4, and you think, oh, yeah, but absolutely, yeah, really good.
Depends on you basically everywhere.
Yeah.
But I have interest, like, because it was such a pleasant experience. Can you just carry on, or was there a point where? Because it was like it was that point of it was so enjoyable. I was like, you know, where's round 5?
No, you can do.
Yeah.
It's how much time you want to put into it. How do you want to go? So sometimes when I've been going through some stressful situations, especially after an incident that happened a few years back, I'd find myself waking up in the morning and I'd do 8 rounds.
Okay.
Because I'd be like, oh, I need this before I start my day. I'd even walk out the door because of how traumatic that was on myself and my family. But that's what's got me through it. And it's...
Do you do that every day? Is that how you kind of look to do it? Is every day do a few rounds or however as many as needed?
Yeah, most days. I like it's best done in the morning on an empty stomach and starting your day that way, and you'll find you can hold for longer on an empty stomach. Your body's not needing to use energy to digest food and everything else, and you can go a little bit deeper. Plus, at the same time, you're reducing inflammation straight away, alkalizing the bloodstream, feeling great, letting go of any of this trauma and stress that you've been through over the week or the day before. And any ailments that you have, I've seen people who've and heard testimonials and seen testimonials of people recovering from muscle injuries and things in a time that they thought was impossible just by using breathwork. I had a guy who's doing my marketing, young lad, and I taught him the breathwork and the ice baths and the weekend. That week he went to rugby training, went over on his ankle, and he rings me up and he's like, Ian, I've just finished rugby training. I've gone over on my ankle. It's in immense pain. It's swelling up. I can't even put weight on it. What should I do? Should I go home and take some ibuprofen or whatnot? And I said, listen, go and do your breathing. Focus on the ankle. Go deep with the breath work. Do your rounds. Then go and get a cold shower. and do it again before bed, first thing in the morning. So he's like, right, okay. An hour later, he rings me up. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm already walking on my ankle. I'm just going to go and take a cold shower now. And I'll let you know how I get on. So, okay, gives a ring. Let me know how you get on, right? So he has his cold shower, whatnot. Does another round before bed. I didn't hear from him. The next morning, still not heard from him. So I ring him up. I'm like, hey, Charlie, how you doing? What's going on? He's like, mate, can't talk. I'm in the gym. I can't believe it. I can't believe no bruising. I'm already walking it. I'm definitely going to keep this up and I'll be ready for my game on Thursday.
Nice.
And there's other stories that I've heard. One of the guys who I met when we were doing the Wim Hof, there was a few that I met. One guy who was bedridden with arthritis, helped his arthritis. He was a blacksmith, and now he was literally bedridden. His dad had to get him out of bed. Started doing the Wim Hof method and using the cold and the breath work. Completely reduced all his inflammation and his symptoms, and now he's back being a blacksmith. At the same time, there's a guy called Casper who I met who was training for. He's actually a scientist. And he was training for a marathon. And as he was training for a marathon, a horse ran out in front of him, kicked him, broke his arm in a couple of places. And because he was in the middle of nowhere, and this whole lane, country lane, a bit like probably somewhere in the Isle, right? He said he had no way of getting any pain management, anything like that. And this is another thing with the breathing, it goes into your pain management system. Women are really good with this because through the birthing process, right, they have to naturally embedded within us to deal with pain management. You stub your toe, first thing you do, right? Take that deep breath. So he started doing the breath work to help with the pain and pain management. A woman comes along who's driving a car, thought he was hyperventilating, tries to stop him. He's like, no, please just get me to the hospital. I'm using this for pain management. By the time he got to the hospital, he thought, I'm not in the pain that I thought it would be. I'm going to use this as an experiment to see if I can go through them correcting my arm and all the rest of it without any pain medication. So he's got all this documented in a really good book called What Doesn't Kill Us by Scott Conor. And he used it to reduce the inflammation. He actually healed his arm a lot faster than he thought possible. And he had his cast off a lot sooner. Now, without going doing any running training, his marathon that he was training for, he thought, well, I'll still want to go and do it now, but without any running training. So because he'd been training the cardiovascular system and using those low levels of oxygen, he actually went out and ran a personal best without any running training.
I'm interested because you talk about flooding red blood cells and like a barrack chamber. Is that what?
Second home.
Yeah.
I think it's first home, isn't it? Second home.
It's exactly what I was thinking. When you were saying that, I was like, there's a link, you're literally just full on oxygen. And I can vouch for it, it's, and that was part of the whole, not appeal, but many sports people before, not just sports, but people as well. It's like the elderly go in there to help their ailments as well. It's all oxygen based, and it's obviously a clear aid and get better. So relative.
Yeah, and that's it. So even at while we're sat here now, if you had a pulse oximeter on, your body oxygen level would be at 98 to 99%. So really, when we're doing these deep breaths, we're only increasing it by a couple of percent. But then when you go down and you lower it on that breath hold and you hold it, and the oxygen levels just start to dip. Like if you were speaking to a doctor or someone, they'd be like, that's extremely low, it's very dangerous or whatever. But because you're causing that hypoxic state, but in a controlled way, and forcing the body to make those adaptations, it's going to adapt. It's going to get stronger. Right?
To hold the breath, well, you don't really hold breath at the end, do you? I always find it with that. I've done it a couple of times when you say stop breathing, basically. But after like 30 or 40 seconds, your body, I think, wants to breathe, and then you kind of self-check yourself, and you go, it doesn't need to here.
Yeah.
And then that just continues and continues, and like you say, up to like 3 minutes of.
Like I said, even when we did that practice round, right? I think was it you that said it, or one of you said it. It was 1 minute 13, and then 1 minute 30 seconds. And one of you was like, that felt like nothing.
That went quick.
It went, it went,
It went now.
yeah, you know what I mean?
Tea out in 40 seconds, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, because you're in that state, you're just somewhere else. And like you said about the colours, you can be all these lights and stuff going off, and it can be feel a bit weird, but it's like, wow, it's kind of this internal world that we can delve into.
Can I ask one other question for everyone, I guess? One of the things when I think about high performance is resilience building. I know, Conor, we've talked on other podcasts about your injuries yourself, or maybe for Elliott, someone new to chat about that, and just the importance of building resilience as part of the overall package, should we say? We talked earlier about high performance, and just what, your views on that and your own stories around that, I guess.
Yeah, I think as a high performance athlete, and I'm not talking about me, just in general, there's more downs and ups. So you have to become pretty resilient straight away. And I think sport's given me everything skills wise, really, in terms of going into the working world after that. Things that I think seem a problem to other people or other colleagues. I think from being so deep into sport and having done races 9-10 days long and traveled around the world to do it, you just become more resilient to that kind of thing, and just I don't know, just gives you it's given me all the skills for life skills from sport, I think. Yeah.
And is that something you then have got a family yourself and 2 daughters,
Daughter and son.
daughter and son, that you just not push them in sport, but you see the value in, again, sport to help them build resilience as a kid?
Yeah. I try and use everything I've learned to help them along the way. My daughter's into musical theatre. She's at a school for that at the minute, and it's no different than sport for me. That it's just preparing the best you can to go into the professional world of that, and it's going to be the same thing. You're going to get knocked back, and then at some point you might get an opportunity. So it's building the resilience for that part of it, really.
Yeah, I suppose I guess even for you with struggles with your mental health and maybe is that the right term to use, or just struggles you were having?
Yeah,
you use that as resilience building because you look back on those situations.
Yeah, I think that comes through, like you said, is experience and life experience. I've always been one of them when the times get hard to dig in, even when I was working in the factory, even when I was playing football. It's like, okay, when the time gets tough, that's when you put more effort in. And so for me, I'd seen a lot of mental health issues within my own family. And so I wouldn't even say that I was depressed or anything like that. I was just going through some dark times that I was exhausted. It just exhausted me, and I was at the point where I didn't see any way out financially and everything else, which pushed me to that. But I now look back on that with gratitude, because I look back and that forced me to change. And if it didn't happen, then what I'd experienced, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, and I love what I'm doing. So I see that now as I look at any hardship that I'm going through in life. It might be hard at the time, but I can always look back on the future. This has forced me to change and to grow and to adapt. And I don't even see myself being the same person I was 5 minutes ago, because I've already sat here today and just learned something new. So how can I be the same person? So I've just learned something. I've just grown. And that's the kind of way I see things now. And even with the other things that we talked about on my podcast that's happened to me, it's like, I don't want to play the victim. I want to say, okay, this is what's happened. How can we find solutions? What's the lesson from this? And move on and kind of use that and be more resilient and mentally stronger. And I think another thing with the cold is it gives you more confidence, and it makes you more resilient, because you're breaking down barriers of fear of the cold, right? So big fear, right, Elliott? When you said, never done this before, big fear. And a lot of people have a fear of the cold, but it's when you break down those fears those fears, and you say, actually, I'm okay, this makes me feel good, kind of breaks down other fears within yourself, which then allows you to be...
Get that resilience to it, right?
Exactly, yeah. The body gets stronger, your mind gets stronger.
Some Conor said, you were talking about the accountability in the room there, maybe some egos of, I have to do it because other people do it for you. But Conor, you say you do it at home. I appreciate maybe it's the wife forcing to do that. Part of the quote enjoyment, unquote, is the body and the mind saying don't do it, or the mind saying don't do it. So there was a study recently on humans, and I picked this up. I'd love to say I read the study, but I didn't know if Andrew Huberman, I don't know anyone listening to his podcast, and he was talking about a study where there's a part of your brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. There's a part of your brain that kind of moves in size, and the studies show that you can keep it shrinks with age. Just if you did nothing, in essence, it shrinks with age. It shrinks with people who are like studies showing obese people, for example, it shrinks in size. And when you look at longevity in life, people who have longer lives and better, fitter, healthier lives have a bigger anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And they say one way to keep its size and increase it is to do things you don't want to do. So it's not like for example, I might not want to go quote for a 3-hour bike ride, but I enjoy riding it. But it's doing things you really don't want to do. And the ice bath's a good example of that, where they talk about going to do something. But I always then attribute that also to resilience, because resilience, life hits you and you've got to build your own resilience up through traumas of your own life. But if you go out and seek those, let's call it additional traumas, doing those things you really don't want to do. And they're part of the brain now. They're almost linking it to the will to live. So the longer, So probably the bigger. It's probably not quite the right terminology, but the bigger you can keep it, it'll not only help you build resilience and tackle problems, but it'll also seek to willpower and longevity as well.
And I'm sure there was a study that was done on.
Yeah.
But it's that mind again, isn't it?
Don't do it.
It's that little monkey mind that tells you, convinces you not to do the things you want to do. But if you can just silence that and go, no, shut up, you. I'm doing this because I know it's going to make me feel good. But I'm sure there was a study where it showed that those who see stress as being a good thing, and those who see stress as being a really bad thing, those who see it as an actual good thing live longer.
Yeah, that's it.
Because you deal with it a different way. And it was one of the young lads actually who came part of SC Ironman, and he'd just been released from Wolves and whatnot, and he could have got down about it, but he says, I just love challenging myself, and I see it as a good thing, and I'm going to grow and progress from it. I thought that's, as a lad at such a young age, to have that mentality.
It's a good mindset,
Yeah, it's different. Whereas those who beat themselves up about it, like we were saying, like, oh, I'll fail and I'll fail and I'll fail, but I'm not going to beat myself up, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep changing. I'm going to keep adding new things in and adapt it. And
I've had an injury, like an odd injury.
one or two.
Yeah, not very well documented. And I've often, like, whenever it's happened, there was a time at Donington Park where I basically broke my wrist, and TT was 8 weeks away. All I was bothered about was how quickly could I get back on the bike. It's like sort of just dusting yourself down and just getting on with the process and just going through it and just getting back to that bike. The ultimate goal being getting on the bike again.
Solutions, right?
Yeah, solutions. Not like,
right.
oh, I could have just gone, TT's, that's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
Just got to just pin your ears back and just get stuck in and get back on it. Get back in the saddle.
I know you can't change it, but how frustrating is it that you don't have the knowledge and brain and experience today you didn't have at 90? So you'd be somewhere else. So from what you've learned.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But okay with that. It's just you can't change. Hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? As they say. And can't live with hindsight. And I'm not bitter. And it was just a fact. And I think it's a fact for a lot of people.
Yeah,
that your body's obviously really good at 19, 20, mid-20s. But your head wasn't there until, to catch up till it's 30s later,
Yeah, I suppose people go into, again, that professional environment. They're living like professionals from 10, 11. They're probably, because I think Ironman Sport I think Rich Sill probably does a bit of work around that, doesn't he?
Yeah, definitely.
I suppose younger athletes than.
Yeah.
I was going to say than us, but
there's definitely people there now that can help younger athletes with that, yeah.
And that mindset bit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Elliott's the man for training you.
Yeah.
Ian's the man for fixing.
Yeah.
Getting the ice bath.
Ice bath with a paddock.
Yeah, ice bath is, well, that's one thing we've actually I've offered them. I tried it. Well, I offered it last year. So last year it was actually a sidecar rider reached out to me, and I actually gave him my inflatable ice bath, the one you've been up when we were in London, and I was literally delivering ice to him every other day to keep it going. So he was using it last year. Then he's like, oh, a mate of mine behind, he's got his ice bath with him. Can you sort him out with ice? So I was spending time taking up ice, dropping ice out to these riders and whatnot. And I was like, well, no, I've reached out to them to see if they'd like our service up at the paddocks, because it'd be great if we could have the ice bath set up so the riders don't have to have that worry about, oh, I need to go and pick up ice, or I need to source this and whatnot. So, and maybe the barrel sauna up there as well, so riders can, even maybe a place we could do the breathwork, or we have the riders come to the studio. They want to do it.
There's a clear benefit to doing it. I think we've been discussing about what the TT are doing as an event to ensure rider safety as best as possible. You know, clearly there's a drive to look after us riders. So, you know, there's new stuff going on along all the time, isn't there?
Yeah.
But the riders need to take some responsibility as well and get
Oh,
on board with
definitely.
it. And
Yeah.
you know, the organisation can't do everything. But
Yeah.
the tools are there. The tools are there now
Yeah.
to you know, to do it. And like I said, I think a warm up and cool down is. It seems you wouldn't do a local push bike race without a warm up and cool down. But yeah, there's people at TT level that are walking out of the van and jumping on the super bike.
Yeah.
All the information's there. Just
I think I think it's a bit of a mentality shift I'd have to probably.
it's a whole
take
cultural
place.
thing that have to change. Yeah,
Because
and
to be like, oh, I'm going to save the energy, you know, before getting on the bike.
we need to be fit enough to be able to warm up.
Yeah.
And the warm up isn't. It's you know, it's like, it's real basic stuff. And
Yeah.
it's definitely a cultural thing. And some of the riders I've worked with are so. It's just not something they've grown up with. That
Yeah.
it's hard to get them engaged with how important it is.
Yeah.
But
If you want more, you got to, as I said before, make some changes, make some tweaks to your whole process,
Yeah.
isn't there? And yeah.
if you're not fit enough to do 10-minute warm up
Yeah.
once a day,
Yeah.
you know, you maybe need to look at it.
Maybe you should be starting now before
Yeah.
TT.
Yeah.
Or maybe a few months ago, but you know.
But it's coming on so much compared, as I said to you right at the start, like from when I started doing TT to where we are now. It's been a huge drive, hasn't there?
Definitely,
The improvement is tenfold. So it's down to, like, so me as a rider in the event to maybe promote it some more. And it's something I could maybe look at, you know, and shout about it more. I'm doing more. I do believe the older you get, you do have to train harder, don't you? You have to look after yourself some more and police yourself.
And recover harder.
Yeah.
Is the other thing, isn't it?
Obviously, the fitness side of things with yourself, you know, it's a win-win if people want to invest into it, invest into themselves, really.
Yeah, that's it. 100%.
Yeah, I think that's been a really interesting chat. It's been an awesome afternoon. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Good luck this year. And be like really looking forward to seeing how you.
Thank you very
goes
much.
for you.
Thank you, and yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks
Good
for
luck.
that.
Yeah.
Thanks for Samson, yeah. Much appreciated.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.